So we're here today with Paula Martin, one of our Arizona drag racing legends, and a fantastic story about, in the viewpoint of actually being a female driver in a man's sport, but some good vision about racing in general, and a great background. And she's a. We'll let her tell you the story. So where are you from?
I'm from Dallas, Texas, just a small town north of Dallas, little farm ranch community.
When did you feel the need for speed? How did you get? What was your first thing you realized you liked?
I started with motorcycles. I was into horses. Everybody in Texas is into horses, and I started a little business when I was 13 or 14 years old, and so I had to get around, and bought a motorcycle, and had a lot of fun with that. And then when I went away to college, that kind of fell away. And a couple of years into college, I started skydiving, and had something like 43 jumps, I think. So
you love the rush of
extreme sports are
extreme
good.
sports.
Yeah.
So where did you go to college?
Arizona State. Well, I started at University of Texas on a journalism scholarship, and I lasted there a semester before I did a really good job of flunking myself out.
So you went away to school.
I went away to school.
So you went from the hook 'em horns to the devil.
To the devil. Yes, yeah. I did.
Quite the transition. So you came out here, and did you continue? Did you do any jumping out here, or did you?
All the jumping was out here. Yeah, I was part of the Sun Devil skydiving team, and I was going to school, also working full time, and at that point, I think it was my sophomore year, I met my husband. We got married, and he saw no reason to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Well, I was going to question you about that as well. But
yeah, they were all really good airplanes. And so he was into circle boat racing and water speed skiing.
So on the parachute thing, so you're going to school, and were you walking through down the sidewalk, and there's a bulletin board saying jumpers needed, or how did you get?
That's an interesting
what attracted
concept.
you to that?
I was living in an apartment, a singles apartment complex, and they had a special for $35 or something like that you could learn to jump out in the morning. They'd go through the exercise with you, and then that afternoon you would get 3 jumps. And I thought, well, that's a smoking deal. Yeah. And so went down to Casa Grande, and that was in the Big Blossom. The parachutes were the Big Blossoms. So you never were really sure where you were going to land with
you're
those.
You're more the passenger than the driver.
You really were, yeah. I met a lot of cactus that way, actually. All of us did.
It's kind of like a hot air balloon.
Yeah,
once to land, it's going to land. Huh?
Yeah, I think they have a little bit more control even than those blossoms.
You did that, and you met your husband, and he said,
I'm not jumping. Yeah, I'm not jumping out of an airplane.
So, and he was involved with boats.
Yeah, boats and water ski racing. Yeah.
So, how did you transition? And because obviously there must have been some excitement there for you, or the.
Well, I never water skied, and so when I started, I really liked it, and I wanted something that we both could do. We didn't have a lot of spare time. Both of us were working, and I was working and going to school. And so I was beginning to get kind of bored with the jumping. And so learned how to water ski. A year later, started competing and did that for 10, 11 years. And then as an offshoot of that, pulling skiers around, I started boat racing, circle boat racing.
And where did you remember your first race, or when you actually, first time you did it competitively with butterflies or any?
With the boats or with skiing?
With the boats, just the.
Oh yeah, because no woman had gone there before, and you raced against sometimes 11 other boats, and you never knew what kind of driver. That's kind of like the beginning of drag racing, when there weren't any rules about driving, and so it was wild. It was really wild, and I didn't want to flip the boat. Because everybody would know Paula flipped the boat,
right?
Not somebody out there, one of the guys. It would be I flipped the boat, and I never did. I got very lucky, and I set goals for myself to be ranked nationally, and eventually did for 2 or 3 years.
Did it take a while? I think one of the toughest questions from my viewpoint is just to understand being a female, obviously, and what you're going through. But were you doing it because you were trying to prove a point as a female, or you just because you're competitive?
You've talked to my brother, because that's what my brother always said, because nobody in the family has ever done any kind of extreme sport or been involved in racing. I didn't. I did it because I liked it.
Right.
I've never tried to prove anything. I like competing, and I liked speed. And in the water speed skiing, we were running sometimes 100 miles an hour skiing, and the boat ran around 110, and you had a changing race surface all the time, plus all the other competitors. So it was a physical sport, very physical sport.
So you earned your your need for speed on water.
I did.
Did you ever do any drag boat racing, or was it all circle boat racing?
All circle boats. Yeah, very different. Two different, very different sports. Yeah.
The drag boat racing, you probably look at those guys, said they're crazy.
I did, and I skied behind one of them in an attempt to set a water ski record, and I think I ran 108 out at Firebird on the water out there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fast.
And that's not, that boat's not going to turn real sharp at the other end. It's on and off, and
it's on and off, and a huge rooster tail, so you had to deal with that. I think I was on a 230 or 40 foot rope.
So you're way behind the.
Not behind far enough, but yeah, it helped. It just felt more like a hurricane then.
So, how did you? Hey, Paula, we got this idea for you. Are you interested? I mean, here, have another beer first. Yeah. Have one more. Yeah. We want to talk about. Here, have another beer first. What in your right mind made you want to do that?
To ski that fast?
I mean, to go behind it.
Yeah, it made sense then, retrospectively. Sitting here talking about it, I'm going, yeah, you were nuts. When you're surrounded by people who do that, it's like drag racing. When you're surrounded by people who go, 280, 300 miles an hour, it's like, it's not a big deal.
So you're in the water, you say, hey, hold my beer, I got this.
I didn't do a whole lot of that, because it was pretty scary stuff.
But you definitely did it with a lot of respect. We know that. So you did that. So did the boat racing, and then how did the idea of doing racing on dry surface come about?
Like I said, I'd set goals for myself in those sports, and sometimes you just feel like it's over. It's done. I'm done with that part of my life, and that's what I did. Plus, both of those sports, especially water skiing, was very physical, and by then I had gotten busted up a lot. I had fractured my neck, pelvis, hurt an eye. It was a very physical sport. And so I thought, well, I'd be okay just riding horses and playing golf. And about a year later, I got really cranky and tried to isolate why I was more cranky than usual, and it had to do with the fact I missed competition.
You needed adrenaline.
I did.
The rush of doing something.
Absolutely.
So you went drag racing.
I did.
And what year about what was this year?
I didn't even go. I was listening to the time frames here, and I never even went to a drag race until the mid-'80s. I was in my 30s, and I went to a funny car event, one of the night events, and I was so dazzled by it. I'd seen it on TV, but it's so different in person, and I thought, geez, that looks so scary. I probably need to do that. And so I sold my race boat. I had talked to Della Woods at the Fall Nationals, and she suggested Frank Hawley's school. So I went down to his school. He only had top alcohol cars then, and so the first car I got in was top alcohol funny car, and liked it really well. And
had you been down the drag strip before you went there?
No, we just, we were naive and blind. Blinded by all.
I don't say so naive. I think you're focused, if you ask me, but or a little bit crazy on top of it. But naive's not the word. So you went to Frank Hawley's school, and as we know through the years, a lot of great people have gone through there. And you graduated, and you said,
"I really want to do that." The things that people had warned me about with the funny car actually fit in a strange way with the boat racing, because funny cars are physical and you do have to manage them, and they can be erratic. They can be all those bad things. But I was used to that with boats. Until I started going over 200, I really didn't feel as fast as I did in the boat going 110.
But you had to hit it at that point. So you're driving between the candles now.
Mm-hmm.
So you built a funny car. Did you buy a funny? How did you get the funny car?
We bought a used funny car, a little Monza, and put an injected alcohol in it, and ran with the California Injected Funny Car Association for the first year. And I mean, we were starting with basics like how much air do you put in the rear tires. I was in line to make one of the first passes, and I think I was next to Virgil Hartman or Richard, I can't remember, and I sort of looked at their rear slicks and mine, and I thought, geez, mine don't look quite right. So I went over there and sort of nonchalantly, well, so how much you guys running on this track, and your tires, like, you changed a lot. I was running 11 or 12, and they were running 6. I mean, it was like I would have looked like a cartoon character going down.
Yours looked like the grape, theirs looked like the raisins.
Yeah. And that association too was, everybody there was really nice, very helpful, friendly. So that was my first orientation to it. And then the next year, I bought a Bob Newberry car, alcohol thing, and ran that for about 6 months, and then converted that to fuel.
So you started with Sifka, great
Mm-hmm.
place to start. I'm sure boat racing is much the same, but your competitors are also your support group. If you had a question, you needed help, everybody's glad to help, which is one thing I love about drag racing.
Absolutely.
You went from Sifka into blown alcohol funny car, and for 6 months that was okay. And then you said,
we really need to make this go faster.
Yeah.
And so we converted it, and I got my license in August in Phoenix.
nice.
Yeah, it was.
That's an extreme sport itself.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was worse for the guys working on the car than it was me, but it was hard. Yeah, and got it on a Friday, and then finished the passes up on Saturday, and then Ron Fossil signed me off, and I raced him that night in a match race.
That had to be something. Another legend.
I think the world of Ron. When shortly after that, like for about 4 months after that, I had a major explosion, fireballed it, and got burned. And until you've been burned, I don't think you have a concept of how bad it can be. And none of my friends had been. And anytime I wanted to talk about it, all they wanted to say was, don't do it again. And so Ron would call me up once or twice a week and ask me how I was doing and tell me what I could expect from, as you move through the process of healing. And
Definitely a person that had been some severe fires on his own.
Oh yeah. In fact, I called him Staple Butt because he'd had so many, they finally had to just staple his butt on.
Okay, put it right here for now.
Yeah.
The great mentor though.
Absolutely.
And you went through the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember anything about it, or does your mind kind of go blank on it? Or
Oh no, those things you remember. Well, unless you just totally knock yourself out. And I didn't hit anything, so there was no knocking out. It was 3/4 track, engine exploded, blew the body off, fireballed. When it blew the body, of course, the parachutes burned off. Braking system was damaged. Fire bottles were damaged. So very difficult to stop the car. And when I did get it stopped, the first track person there, I was still on fire, and the first track person there, his fire extinguisher didn't work. So you see that panic in his eyes, and I'm still flaming, and the cam locks, I had a problem that year, and so did Don Gay Jr. with the cam locks, because when there was intense heat put on them, they would not release. And so I was sitting there banging on it, trying to open it up to get out of the car, and couldn't until the safety safari got there and cut it.
So this is terrible. I mean, it's got to be like, where am I? You know, what am I going to do? But you weren't even thinking about that. You're just thinking about surviving it at the point.
Well, you know, after going to Holly's school, I thought, regardless of what happened with the car, as long as I kept my head screwed on right, I'd be okay. And I carried that throughout the pass, and I knew that I was going to damage my hand because the handbrake was on the right, and the majority of the flame was on the right, and I had to put it there, and I had to leave it there. But I didn't, it's interesting, with third-degree burns, once you burn the top layer of the skin, you don't feel anything, and the body does a really good job of shutting that area down. So at the end of it, I was horrified that I was on fire, but it was more of a, geez, I'm back here and I'm looking at myself on fire, but I wasn't feeling a lot of pain.
What track were you at?
Firebird, right in front of everybody.
So you got to go to Maricopa County?
I went to Tempe,
Okay.
and they called in a plastic surgeon, and then they actually let me go in. I went back to the track the next day, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm bebopping around thinking, what's the big deal? These guys are always telling me how bad burns are. Well, they're not bad until the lights come back on in your body, and that happened Monday about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like, yeah, now I know what they're talking about. Yeah.
So you healed. Did you go back racing, or was?
I would have raced 3 or 4 months as soon as the doctor released me, but everything was gone. Every part that I owned, which wasn't a deep chest of parts, was gone. And so it took us about 1.5 years to recuperate enough so we at least could start considering it. And about then, Johnny West was available to build a car and to crew on it, and we were very lucky I got him.
Great mentor.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing was, and I don't know if he knew this from the start, but he was working with 2 people on the crew that knew very little about what we were doing, and a rookie driver. And I remember coming back from one of the first passes I made with him, and he goes, "No, you sit up in front with me so we can talk about the pass." Oh, okay. And he said, "So how was it at the 330? And I'm sitting there going, I don't remember the 330. And then he said, well, how about, you know, 3/4 track? How was it still pulling? And you know, the only thing I could think of was, Johnny, it pulled the whole way. That was the fastest I've ever gone. I had no relevance. And so I think he kind of set about letting me know that I wasn't just there for the ride, that I needed to give feedback about the pass, and then he started teaching me how to do that.
So he was trying to get you to slow the pass was going to be so quick no matter what, but he was trying to get you to slow it down in your mind to.
Yeah, to pay attention, that you're so wowed by everything, and at least I was, and you know, I'm just sitting there smiling because I got to go really fast, and he's going, you know, you do have a job.
I think you talked a lot of the great drivers do it for a long time. In their mind, if they were to script a pass in a funny car, a real quick pass, the script would probably take about 4 minutes to read, and it happened in such a short time.
Oh yeah.
So he was helping you.
Absolutely.
The next step.
And it feels that way now. And he, you know, there are things, subtle things that we could do back then, like holding the brake from off the starting line or down the track. Johnny, as most people know, is he's blunt and he's clear about his communications. And
His filters are weak.
Yeah, and that was a good thing. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got some great guidance from him. How long did you continue to race?
We raced with Johnny, and he was able to get a marketing partner for the end of the year, and so he bought the car and he went off on his own path, and I sat and tried to figure out what we were going to do at that point. The next year, I think I ran 2 or 3 races with Chicago Trapper Terry Joyce car, and still it was on and off of being able to race. And then the next year, there was just no money at the Trapper deal, and so we struck a deal with Terry Joyce. We bring in this, you bring in that. We provide, because I'd been able to get a sponsor by then. And And so that worked fairly well. What didn't work was I had a series of not so good crew chiefs. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
When Simpson says, you know, Paula, you probably ought to start buying your fire boots in bulk. You know, it's not been a good year. Yeah.
No, they're not supposed to be expendable. They're supposed to be. I always remember the deal. You know, I used to have a speed shop here in town, and people come in and complain about the price of safety equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it's meant to be worn but never used.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's what you hope for.
And if you're at the point where you need to use it, you'll pay me 5 times the cost.
Well, and when you start getting as a driver, when you start getting nonchalant and going, oh geez, you know, my feet are on fire again. That's not a good thing. That's not something you want to just go, oh, my feet are on fire again.
That's not normal.
No.
So when did you you know, I know you race and then.
So we raced, yeah.
When did you stop racing the funny car?
We did match races on and off there for the last probably 3 years. I was doing maybe 5 match races a year. And then in 96, 97, I think was when finally said, unless it will support itself, we're not going to do this anymore. And it's hard to make it support itself. I mean, everybody's race knows that.
We kind of find the people who get the big support actually find a way to spend the money, so they're still.
And I had a great sponsor with Isaac Land System, but they sold the company, and when they did, they went off to do Formula One racing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at a point where you had to have a sponsor if you wanted to be at all competitive. And I was lucky because the last 2 or 3 races I was able to get the late Ron Collins, who I loved to death. He was excellent what he did, and I wish I had got him earlier because I think I could have things would have gone better.
So
so we parked it.
You parked the car,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a passion for horses still, and you have a passion for animals,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a career.
Did. Mm-hmm.
And so I know that, you know, I don't know that I'm not saying this, I'm questioning you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you were involved in the healthcare system big time, and so did you move to California, or you working for a while? Were you living in California for a while?
I did. I lived over there for 14 or 15 years. I got a divorce, I think, in 96, and I had known Trip Shoemake for a long time, and by then I think he had been divorced quite a while. And I called him up to congratulate him on his induction into the Arizona Hall of Fame. And so we started talking and ended up dating, and then we ended up being together for 3 years until he died.
So
and
that had to be a fantastic part of your life.
it was a lot of fun. I didn't have any children, and he had Travis at that point, was fairly young. And it was different. I was used to nieces and here's a boy in the house, but I truly enjoyed it. It was fun.
He kept he kept passion for all the fun things going for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He's like you said, they're definitely another guy that we shed a lot of tears on when we lost him, along when we lost Mark Niver as well.
Yeah.
But you still have the passion. You still want to go racing.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are in 2020, 2019, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
An old friend is building an altered, and you get a call.
I got a call, and I had just recently, I was director of neuropsychiatry at University of California in Orange County, and I had just left there, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do from there, whether I was going to continue to work, retire, whatever. And a friend called up and said, "Hey, you want to drive a fuel altered?" And it took me like a nanosecond to say yes.
Did you really think about it, or did you just like?
Oh no, I didn't need to think about it.
No, like a reaction. Like,
oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah, drive a race car. Yep, I wanted to.
Like
do that.
the light
After
came
15
on, you
years.
grab the food, let's go racing.
Yeah, after 15 years, no problem. And of course, then afterwards, I thought about it a little bit. So time went on. It was unclear whether that was going to come together or not. So I decided, well, I'm going to go down. I'll go back down and see Frank and go ahead and get my license again. And went down there on Friday, and someone had already asked me back east to drive their car on Saturday up at South Georgia Raceway. So relicensed on Friday, drove their car on Saturday. And then have driven 2 or 3 other for different reasons. One friend of mine, his arm was broken. He couldn't do shakedowns on his car, and so then last year and year before last, I drove Funny Car in the Funny Car Chaos, which is fun. It's outlaw funny cars. And
So
then
still remembering along the way that a great crew chief is everything.
absolutely.
Okay.
And there's a set of rules and ways of doing things along that, and I just say I was spoiled, but especially with Johnny here, but yeah, because I'll give him a big head, but yeah, I was spoiled by how I was taught to do things. And I'll pinch hit for some teams, but there were some that I wouldn't, and some after I was there that I thought to myself, this is not my scene. I need not to be here anymore. Dangerous. Fuel will get you.
Does it still feel fun going on the track though?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you've done all this. You lived a full lifetime in many different things. Jumping out of good airplanes. You rode a scooter as a young teenager.
Yeah.
You did a lot of things, but you've also set a good example for a lot of other women out there in motorsports, and just to go do it. And
I
follow
hope
your
so.
dream. And it's we have a lot. It's really kind of fun now to watch NHRA when we actually have the Pruitts and the Forces and and the and all the different
Oh yeah.
Alexa, the Joria, and they're all good drivers. I mean, they're not there because of their gender. They're there because they can drive the car.
And because they have money.
Well, yeah, there's some.
And they
there's
have
some,
backing.
There's some men that can't drive that have money there too, unfortunately. But
yeah, not too many though anymore
Yeah.
because it is so expensive.
Yep.
And I think that's we were talking earlier, and I think it's a sport of millions now, and that changed from when these guys started. I mean, it's hard to tell whether that's good, bad. It just is.
That's what it is. That's why the nostalgia stuff's a lot of fun to watch. Funny Car Chaos is off the hook. Just unbelievable the amount of fans that it draws. They had the Funny Car Chaos in Texas this year where they had
were fast.
some odd cars, 68 cars,
Yeah.
something like that. And
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. So the passion's still there, and you still have the passion.
Yeah.
When we gonna see you racing again?
We're going to test. We've
Okay.
been working on the Altered because it's a little bit of a different kind of car, and different team. We lost a team member a few weeks ago, and that was hard on especially John and Jim because they'd known him for so long. So we're going to go down there and see what we can do. Johnny's helped John in terms of changing some things in the car. We'll see. I like it. It's very different with seeing the flames because as soon as you lose a hole, you know it because of the flame. It's kind of cool. That makes it easier.
The birthday candles are all on for you.
Yeah.
And when they're all on, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. They're fun to drive.
Paula, it's you've got such a fantastic story. We appreciate you coming here sharing this
thank
with
you.
us today. We're glad that you've pretty much made Arizona a place you come back to, and you're here, and we consider you one of our Arizona drag racing legends.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
Very
here.
kind of you.
Yeah.